Hello YouTube, my name is Agent Omega and I do things. Today we're going to go over this submission I have for Mumbo Jumbo's Redstone Inside Redstone Inside Redstone challenge, or as I like to call it, Redception. Before we begin, I just wanted to apologize for the lack of content the past couple of weeks. On the 25th, I actually went to Canada to help my sister move out from grad school, and I was gone until June 3rd. Now, we went to Vancouver, which is a lovely place, really great scenery and lots of sights to see, and of course, tons of great food. Would love to go back there again, but naturally that means that I haven't been able to record either Minecraft or Nature's Beauty or, whatever. So that is all of that out of the way. Now, to explain the challenge a little bit, around about May 12th, I think, Mumbo Jumbo released I Build Your Silly Redstone Ideas number 14. And at the end of that, of course, somebody suggested that he build sort of a redstone inception contraption. And then, of course, he challenged everyone else to go ahead and build a redstone inception contraption. This contraption is mostly practical, I will admit. So basically, I couldn't really think of anything super creative to build, so I went, this is redstone inside redstone inside redstone from a wiring perspective. So basically, these devices all sort of fit within each other from a flow diagram perspective. So first, the outermost layer is of course a storage system. I have no idea why, but I really like my storage system. So over here you can see some of Exuma's storage silos. Behind me you can see I've modified one of those storage silos to act as my trash bin from my Piston House video. And over here, we've got 4 Tango Tech modules, and you'll notice one peculiarity is that I've actually figured out how to skew them, or sort of curve them, because mostly they're like the one in the middle. They're totally flat. So we'll be going over the redstone changes that I've done for all of these particular things, and, just little bits and bobs later, but I want to go over the whole contraption first. The second thing, and I'm looking down so as not to spoil everything else, we've got an 8-wide super smelter, and so that all fits within the sorting system. Naturally, we've got input chests all over the place, so if you wanted to smelt things, you could either put it in over here or over here. It turns out that with the design, I've got a little bit of redundancy, and they actually sort of flow back into each other, and we'll go over that later, of course. And finally, last but not least, within the super smelter wiring diagram sort of model that I have in my head, we have a giant mumbo jumbo. And because this super smelter is based on Tango Tech's design, yes, I believe this is another Tango design. Normally it would have a blinking light here, but I decided to opt for a mustache. And this isn't just a mustache, this is also Mumbo's mouth. So whenever the system is out of fuel or it needs refueling, this will actually open and close. And I will demonstrate that presently. See, look at that. Isn't that fantastic? That's just the goofiest thing I could possibly think of at the moment. And I did have other ideas for what I could have done for this challenge, but by the time I realized it, it was like last week, and the challenge naturally ends basically tomorrow. So, I obviously opted to finish the idea that I already had, and I'll probably end up releasing some of those contraptions in later videos. But for now, let's get on with this tour. So as I mentioned, we've got these silos over here. These are all sort of predicated on the idea that these are going to come directly from farms. I know you can make iron farms, and I believe you can get redstone from witch farms. So that is sort of... Well, there is no real beginning or end to the system because, as you can see, it all feeds back into itself, and therefore I call it the OuroMumboros, based upon Ouroboros and, of course, Mumbo Jumbo, respectively. So that means that the furnace feeds into this area where, of course, things get sorted out. and then it feeds directly into the trash system. Well, right now the trash system is disabled because this lever is toggled on. Up at the top, these two hoppers are being powered, which means, of course, that items will normally just flow across and they'll not even enter the system. The way this works, again, is based upon my piston house design from December. And basically, out the back, we have a comparator that relies on the signal from this dropper, and that's attached to a dropper NOR latch. And then up at the top, this hopper where it feeds in over here also has one of those. So the instant this one gets signal, these droppers start dispensing like mad because, of course, we've got a couple of observers down below. And then when this is totally empty, the NOR latch will toggle again, and the observers will retract. Now, naturally, even if this system has been triggered, you can turn it off and temporarily disable the clicking and, of course, the trash feed just by flicking this lever back on. Now, because of how this works, I kind of wish I'd actually put the trash system over here, just before the super smelter, because naturally now you've got all of your goods coming out of the super smelter, and unless you remember to toggle this lever, it's going to go into the trash, and that's kind of an afterthought on my part. So over here we've got normal Tango Tech modules. Again, as I said, they are curved. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Tango Tech modules, basically, you need one item in every slot in order to properly sort them. Now, I haven't really filled up this system with items because, well, I've never played Survival Minecraft long enough to have ridiculous amounts of items, and therefore have only really built storage systems in creative mode. So that's kind of that. You'll see that a whole bunch of these items are empty, so if you want to actually use the storage system, I would recommend just sort of clearing everything out and organizing it the way you feel like. But over here, we've got all of these shulker boxes, and they are just filled with sort of different players from Minecraft, both hermits, Evo, and, you know, we've got some Foolcraft references in here, and we've also got sort of the equipment and personal boxes down here. Now, the equipment box and I believe this chest over here, the hoppers are pointed in a direction that aren't into the storage system, so naturally those are sort of the standalone boxes where you can control whatever you put into them, and it's not really going to matter all that stuff. The other thing is, because these are shulker boxes and not chests, you know, we've kind of got this gap under here. I tried to make it look a little bit prettier, but, you know, you are still going to have to deal with that. And if the item falls down here, you might have to break this shulker box above it. That is kind of one design flaw that I would love to mitigate in the future. But for now, I'm rather pleased with how this came out. So just to give a showcase of some of the really humorous ones, we've got the Mumbo Jumbo box, which of course has sugarcane pillar, sugarcane brick wall, sugarcane pillar, sugarcane brick wall, boats and hose, like and subscribe, cactus string sand, cactus string pillar, water source, water source, water source, water source, water source, and water source. And of course we've got his mustache, the diorite bug, and the mega spoon. Then over here we have the Grian box. This is flint and steel, TNT, the Empire needs you, and of course NPC Green was rustic house. Here we've got the Iskal box, we've got the Iskalium gobbets and Iskalium, we've got bird poop. Iskal would probably hate me for that, but that's okay. We've got the butter knife and Excalibur, and then we've got Plastic Fantastic and some of the other building materials that he uses in his base. I kind of don't want to go through all of these, so I'll let you explore some of those, but those are just the most funny ones. A lot of these, I'm more familiar with what the players used to build their bases and less sort of what memes they've generated. So some of these boxes are clearly memeier than others, like Mumbo doesn't have a lick of redstone, but Etho's box has tons of redstone, because, you know, Etho is the whole hopper, timer, clock stuff. and of course also piston doors. So that is sort of the rationale behind those decisions. I believe that covers most of the stuff. Really quickly, we're going to pop over here. We can see that we've got this sort of semi-automatic smelter input, of course, and it functions, again, exactly like it did in my piston house, except I feel like I've refined the approach a little bit more. We've got sort of the oak, birch, because they're the most common wood types in my opinion. We've got beef, pork, cobble, sand, brick, and clay, and of course we don't really have gold or iron because both of those are farmable, but you know, that's why we have this manual input for fuel and this manual input for smeltable materials that aren't on this list. I mean, for one thing, I don't exactly want to create a sorter for every single type of terracotta. That would just be a bit of a nightmare. Really quickly, we're just going to chuck this back in here because we did, of course, take some out. And, of course, we also have this charcoal lock over here, which basically means that after these woods are burned, the system flows back into itself, and we can either automatically put the charcoal back into the fuel line, or we can sort of let it flow around the OuroMumboros and back into a sorting system somewhere over here. So let's go over exactly the modifications I made as well as sort of the build process for this thing. Over here, I actually started with this TangoTech module. It was the very first thing I put in, followed by this Exuma silo. And then from there, I just sort of built out aesthetically. So for the two skewed or sort of curved TangoTech modules, one of the big things you'll notice is that the slab redstone signal elevator type thingy things are reversed on one of them. And the reason being is, for both of them actually, I had to sort of determine what wouldn't intrude on these dropper elevators. Because sometimes I would get into an issue where these things were getting signal when they shouldn't have been, and items were getting stuck, and it was all sort of a mess. Naturally, this also means down below I had to do some funny stuff with hoppers and also these signals. This one doesn't look all that different from the one over here, but you'll notice over here, this line doesn't come from over here, it comes from over here, and it's all just sort of skewed a little bit. So you can feel free to explore that to your heart's content. Inside here, the super smelter, this is the level I want to look at, I think. So normally this part had 11 repeaters in a row, and I realized that there's no way I'm going to need 11 repeaters for an 8 build. But I couldn't figure out at first exactly why Tango had 11 repeaters. And then I realized, wait, this thing is 15 long. The repeaters have a tick delay of 4, so 15 minus 4 is 11. So I just applied that same mathematics here, and so we've got 8 minus 4 is 4 repeaters. I don't know if it's possible to make one of these designs that is longer than 15 blocks due to signal considerations, but you can certainly make Tango super smelters that are less than 15 blocks using that principle. Otherwise, the rest of that is basically the same. You can see in here, this is where the light circuit would be, but instead I've hooked it up to 3 different pistons, sticky pistons, which of course are attached to slam blocks. And the reason I did it this way was to sort of overcome push limits on stuff. So you can see we're pushing 8 blocks here, we're pushing 4 blocks here, and 4 blocks here. Now for aesthetic purposes, of course, I filled in this sort of secondary layer of Mumbo's mustache because there aren't really any good immovable blocks that have this sort of beige tone. So naturally, it just looked kind of messy when I used anything like that. So back here, of course, we've got obsidian. The mouth is made out of pink glazed terracotta, if I recall correctly. And then, so that, let's pop under here real quick. So here we've got the input line from over here, and we also have an input from over here, and we have the output from the smelter over here. Reason being is, of course, we want to integrate it immediately directly into our system, but because of how this thing is laid out, it all sort of feeds into this dropper vader over here, and then it passes over the filters, even if it's already been through the super smelter. And of course that's because, you know, we have things like charcoal that can go back into the system. And then we wrap around over here, and from there it's pretty much just normal stuff. Now, one other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is this sort of weird design I've got for the item filters. When I did the sort of lime design over here, I had an issue where items wouldn't properly flow out of the system. Or rather, when these torches were on, these got locked, but that also meant that these, yes, these got locked as well. And that was a very bad thing because this is supposed to feed directly into the hopper. So I moved everything, or into the smelter. So I moved everything up one block, and I came up with this design where we've got a signal strength of 5 being the requirement, and we've got our negation out here, and by indirectly powering this block, we're only powering these hoppers here, and so we don't need to worry about any of these hoppers being powered at all. Of course, this also means that I had to adjust the amount of items that were in here, so we've got, you know, whatever item we're sorting on, and then we've got 9 buffer items. These are of 16 stackable variety, and then 3 more buffer items of the same type in the remaining slots. And so I also experimented with the exact number of items that were required to minimize the number of filtering items while also not accidentally flooding the system. So basically how I did that was I put a stack of 64 in here, and then I sort of added these buffer items until I saw this block get redstone power, and then I removed one item. So that's just how I went about that design process. Coming over here, we'll just really quickly show you how this works. So we've got our lever output from here. That feeds into both these pistons, which get negated, so clearly they're off. And it also feeds up here to the hoppers. That was kind of a weird design because, of course, we have this silo here, and I was getting a lot of interference with it, so I had to move stuff about. In here, we have duplicates of the different boxes that I made. You can sort of check those out, but I got a little sidetracked there. So here's the output from the hopper, and hold the phone. Well, it would seem that I forgot to wire this up. So basically, we're going to put an observer here, no, here, and that should not interfere with any of these lines. And then, how do I want to do this? I guess I'll take the item out for now. And I'll go ahead and chuck these in. And then I'll go ahead and throw this back in. So I believe, if I recall correctly, this is exactly how the system is supposed to work. You could use something besides observers, but it's just sort of the best thing to do here, in my opinion. So that's how that system is wired up. Like I said, it's exactly the same as the piston house one. It's just bigger. And naturally underneath we've got some lava. And I think that just about wraps it up for all of the weird redstone changes I made. Originally I was going to put an elevator in here, and this whole area was going to be covered up, sort of an indoor layer, and you would take the elevator up and you could go into the maintenance areas and stuff, but that kind of didn't really happen, and I'm a little bit disappointed that I ran out of time, but you know, life happens. So I just wanted to complete this project and show everyone. Um, One other thing that I was sort of inordinately proud of, besides the whole, you know, getting Mumbo's face into the game, was this over here. Like, I really like the aesthetics of this bit here, and I know I kind of tend to do like really obvious colors, like we've got tons of quartz and black and the sea lanterns and stuff. But this was just sort of out of the box, and to me, it evokes sort of, you know, the inside of a furnace, because we've got like the burning embers and stuff, and we've got the hot magma, and we've got a little bit of lava in there. So I was just really pleased with how that came out. And I think that about wraps it up. So my plans on going are to start up a series that, well, I'm going to try not to spoil too much, but we saw that in the outro of the last Nature's Beauty episode, so I hope you look forward to that. I do have a couple of ideas from more redstone contraptions, one of which is actually for Mumbo's slime block army machines, so please look forward to that as well. I also thought on the way back home, because I had to wash my car from, you know, the week that it sat under pollen, that I could totally build a quote-unquote working car wash in Minecraft, wherein, you know, a slime block car pulls up, it gets stopped, and then, you know, some water is dispensed, and then you get like all of the brushes moving in and out and stuff like that. So hopefully I'll get around to that in a month or two. And the other thing is, I'm also considering streaming again. So in addition to Monster Hunter, I kind of want to check out No Man's Sky, because I was one of the early adopters, and it looks really cool now. It has a lot more functionality than it did when I first started playing, so I wager it's going to be a little bit more engaging, and I kind of have a whole idea sort of for that series. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, the world download and references to all of the technology are going to be in the description. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you are new to the channel and would like to see more of this stuff, or more modded Minecraft, etc., etc., please click that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. And of course, if you have any comments, then feel free to leave them in the comments section. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching.